Welcome. In front of me is a Xiaomi 12T Pro, and today I'll show you a couple tweaks and tricks you can do on this phone. So anyway, let's just get straight into it. Open up settings, there we go, and navigate to our display where we will have a couple of things that I want to show you. Number one would be the dark mode, so you can switch obviously between light and dark, just like a permanent switch, but also you can set it up to be on a schedule. So you can have it set so during the night time it's in dark mode, and during the daytime it's in light mode. So during the day you can actually see your display, and during night you don't have to have your eyeballs singed out of your skull. Now moving on to the next one, which I'm going to switch it back. On the video I believe it looks better in light mode. We can move over to the next one, which is color scheme. Now by default it is set to be vivid, so if for you this is a little bit too saturated, you can change it to something else. Now under advanced we will have apparently calibrated options like P3 or sRGB. Now I'm not exactly sure how accurate these are, so take it with a grain of salt. You also have the original and saturated as an option as well, and here though original I guess is the least saturated one, while saturated and vivid are almost the same. Now moving on to the next thing, it's going to be the refresh rate, which is set to default. Now default actually here is the mixture of the 120 and also 60. So it switches between whatever it needs to. So if an image is in motion, like here, because we have this jumping little ball, it will be utilizing 120. But if an image is stationary, like this page right here where nothing is moving on a screen, then it switches to 60 or maybe even below. Now we have also an option to set it custom, meaning you can hard copy it to a specific refresh rate, either 60 or 120. Now I don't recommend hard copying it to 120 just because that will be consuming more of your battery life. But 60 will be a decent option if you're just planning to straight up preserve as much power as you possibly can. But in general, for the most people, if you're planning to have a decent battery life and also that smooth motion, then default recommended is the go-to option. Now moving on to the next thing, we have some AI image engine. So we do have a couple options like super resolution. So it enhances the image. As you can see, it gives you kind of like a blurry example. I haven't tested it out how well this actually affects the images. On here, on this example, it does improve it in some way. I'm not exactly sure how it's doing it, but you can enable it and hopefully it will in certain cases improve your image quality just by being enabled. Now we also have some AI HDR enhancement, so just I guess fakes an HDR, processes video using HDR effects to bring, so it basically fakes an HDR effect on your image. But to be completely honest, I believe if it's faking an HDR, it's probably just a mixture of exposure and brightness editing on a whatever image you will be viewing or video. You can enable it and see how it affects your footage, whatever you will be watching, and maybe you will like it. It's completely preferential, so if you don't like how it's affecting it, then turn it off. We have some also AI image enhancer, so this just, I guess, is the same thing as the previous HDR, just for images, where as I would assume just brings, in this case, as you can see, brings up the saturation and shadows. So yeah, it looks better, but obviously it's just a simple image editing, which is done by the phone automatically. So for some people it might be nice to have. Anyway, let's move over to the next thing, which is the gestures. So we can navigate to the additional settings, right? Let me quickly locate this. There we go. So it was here. Additional settings, gesture. I'm just blind. Now in here you'll have gesture shortcuts, and we have a couple different things. So one of the ones that I would like to use is the turn on torch. I'm not exactly sure why every phone calls it torch. Like, what are we, living in Great Britain? It's a flashlight from as far as I've been learning. So anyway, we can do it, enable it, and this will allow us to double press the power button to enable our flashlight. Now you do need to do it quickly. There we go. Just to kind of showcase this. It's a pretty nice way. Bunch of phones have this, but not every. I do like to enable this, though keep in mind there are some other options in here that could utilize the double press of the power button to launch something else. For instance, I believe camera has it, but Xiaomi actually went out of the way to also give you a substitute for it. So you can launch your camera using either the double press on the power button or using volume down. Some phones that basically have option for camera and flashlight just give you use either one or the other with the power button, and if you like to use both, too freaking bad. So here we have actually a benefit of having additional way of launching it anyway. We have also a couple of things like screenshots, Google Assistant. So if you want to get back the power button, or technically you do have it, but if you want to not have the assistant show up when you just hold the power button for a brief moment like this, then just turn it off, which is what I would like to do, just because I never use the assistant. So to me it's completely useless. And moving on to the last thing that I wanted to show you, it's going to be the, as it's called right here, the full screen display, I think. If I can actually locate it. So we can find it in additional settings in the blue text. So full screen display. And this is just a different way of calling gesture navigation. Now it's called gestures right here. I'm not exactly sure why they're calling it full screen display. It's kind of stupid. Every phone uses gestures as a default method of just naming it, but anyway, let's enable it. Now the first time it does give you an option to learn it or not. If you already have used gesture navigation before, you don't have to. They all work the same way. So you swipe up to go home, swipe up and hold to go to recent, and swipe from either side to go back. Pretty simple, and also pretty intuitive way of navigating to your device. Now with that being said, this would conclude all the tweaks and tricks that I want to show you, and if you found this very helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.